Good evening. Thank you for being here. I extend my gratitude not as a formality, but as a structural acknowledgement. Your presence in this space, at this time, represents a specific and consequential choice. The choice to suspend, for these hours, the ordinary motion of your life. You have chosen to step out of the stream of constant doing, the relentless pressure of decisions and reactions, and to enter a space of deliberate inquiry. This is the first fragile act of preservation we will engage in together, the preservation of attention. For that commitment, which is the necessary substrate for everything that follows, I thank you with genuine seriousness. What we undertake tonight is not a lecture. You will find no inspirational stories here, no aphorisms to jot down in the margins of your program, no seven-step plans for unlocking your potential or optimizing your productivity. To come in search of such things would be to profoundly misunderstand the territory we are about to map. Tonight is an inquiry, a structural inquiry. We are not here to add to the inventory of things you know. We are here to examine the ground upon which that inventory is built. We are not here to solve the problems you carry with you. We are here to investigate the architecture of problem-solving itself, to understand why certain problems relentlessly resist solution, why certain efforts inevitably lead to exhaustion, and why certain paths, no matter how fervently desired, remain permanently closed to you. Our inquiry has a single, narrow focus. It is a claim about the fundamental mechanics of reality, applicable to systems of thought, of computation, of organization, and of the self. The claim is this: all substantive difficulty, the kind that persists, that frustrates, that exhausts, is the experiential signal of a single underlying condition, the rising cost of preserving internal coherence. Difficulty is not, in its essence, a lack of effort, intelligence, or will. It is not a punishment. It is not chaos. It is information. It is a signal emitted by any coherent system when it attempts to advance into territory where its existing structures of self-agreement can no longer be maintained cheaply. To understand this is to learn a new literacy. It is to learn to read the friction in your life not as noise, but as a precise diagnostic of your own structural boundaries. Let us begin at the absolute beginning, with the simplest possible instance of a system in motion: the act of counting. Counting is the primordial act of motion under preservation. Consider what occurs. You say, 1. This is not merely a sound, it is an establishment. It declares a starting point, a unit, a basis. Then you say, 2. This second act is meaningful only because it preserves and extends the structure established by 1. It agrees with it. It acknowledges the unit and adds another in the same class. The sequence 1, 2, 3 is a chain of preserved agreements. Each step is a local act of fidelity to the step before. Now disrupt that preservation. Say 1, 2, 4. The error is not merely arithmetical, the violation is structural. The local coherence between 2 and the next step has shattered. The motion of the mouth may continue, but the motion of counting has ceased. It has been replaced by a different, incoherent activity. In smooth, simple counting, preservation is virtually free. The cost of moving from n to n plus 1 is negligible. The rule is local, the information required is minimal, the verification is instantaneous. Motion feels effortless because the system is operating deep within its horizon of reuse, the domain where pre-verified, reliable structures apply completely. Now impose a constraint. Begin counting, but only allowed the prime numbers. The task changes. It is no longer n plus 1. It is find the next integer that satisfies this non-local conditional rule. Suddenly, each step requires more work. You must pause. You must recall the rule. You must test candidates. You must verify against memory. Delay appears. This delay is the first visible signal. It is the system reporting. Preservation of coherence, in this case adherence to the prime rule, now requires expanded coordination. The cost per step has increased. Intensify the constraint. Count only those primes whose digits sum to another prime, while simultaneously keeping a running total of the primes you've spoken. The delay stretches. The cognitive load spikes. The smooth automatic motion is gone, replaced by a labored, iterative process of checking and cross-checking. You are now operating at the very edge of your horizon for this task. Eventually, you will likely stop. Not because you are tired in a vague sense, but because you cannot find the next integer that satisfies the entire set of constraints without violating one of them. This is exhaustion. It is the terminal signal. The system halts because continuation would force it to break its own internal agreements. It chooses integrity over motion. This sequence, fluid motion, delay, exhaustion, is not a story about counting. It is the fundamental pulse wave of any system that advances while trying to remain something in particular. It is the heartbeat of computation, of logical proof, of organizational process, and, I propose, of a conscious life. You are such a system. You are not a passive weather vane turned by the winds of experience. You are a dynamic, persistent structure operating under a ruthless, continuous regime of self-preservation. Every moment you are attempting to move forward to a new perception, a decision, a response, an identity, while preserving a vast, invisible web of invariants. What are these invariants? They are the axioms of your being, your foundational beliefs about the world, your narrative of self, who you are, where you come from, what you deserve, your core values and ethical boundaries, your model of how people behave, your understanding of cause and effect, your image of your own capabilities and limits. This is the intricate, often unconscious structure you are committed to preserving. When your circumstances and actions align easily with this structure, life feels fluid. Insight comes readily, decisions feel clear and natural. Action flows from thought without internal protest. You are operating within your horizon of reuse, applying well-practiced modules of self to a world they fit. But then you encounter it, the problem that will not yield, the decision that paralyzes you, the relationship dynamic that cycles endlessly in the same painful loop, the creative endeavor that stalls no matter how many hours you log, the goal that recedes as you approach it. You experience this as frustration, anxiety, a sense of being blocked, of spinning your wheels. I am inviting you to perform a radical reinterpretation. See this experience not as a psychological failing, but as a structural signal. You have approached a horizon. At this horizon, the preservation of your internal coherence can no longer be enforced with cheap, local effort. The cost of coordination is spiking. You are trying to move forward, to solve the problem, make the decision, fix the relationship, while holding together a structure of self that is, in this new territory, beginning to generate internal contradictions. The mental effort you feel, the circular thinking, the exhaustion, this is the work of verification. Verification is motion viewed from rest. When you are stuck, you are not truly moving. You are running simulations. You are trying to verify a path forward without actually taking it. You are asking, if I take action A, can I still preserve my belief B? If I admit truth C, can I still maintain my self-story D? If I choose path E, can I still uphold my value F? You are attempting to check the compatibility of a hypothetical future with the entire existing architecture of your past. And just as in mathematics or computer science, verification is cheap where reuse applies. What is reuse in the domain of the self? Reuse is preserved work-made identity. It is a pre-verified, trusted module of being. A skill so ingrained it feels like instinct. A belief so fundamental it operates as perceptual filter. A role, professional, familial, social, so worn in it can be performed with minimal conscious oversight. A story about a past event that has been told and solidified into a personal truth. These are the reusable components of your self-system. They are what allow you to navigate an enormously complex world without having to rederive your identity from first principles every morning. Your personal horizon is the boundary of your reuse. Within your horizon, life is legible, action is relatively effortless, and your sense of self is stable because it is constantly being confirmed. You are applying known modules to known situations. At the horizon, reuse fails. You encounter a situation, a thought, a demand, for which you have no pre-verified module. The problem is novel not in a superficial way, but in a way that challenges the interfaces between your modules. To proceed, you must either expand coordination dramatically, force your existing modules to work together in new, untested, and inefficient ways. This is the exhausting circular thinking, the endless pro-con lists, the sleepless nights of mental bargaining. This is high-cost verification. Extend the system, form a new invariant, create a new reusable module. This is the act of genuine learning, insight, or transformation. It is costly and often destabilizing. It requires a temporary breakdown of the old horizon so a new, broader one can form. Stop. Most human suffering, ineffectiveness, and quiet despair stem from a persistent misreading of this signal. We experience the rising cost, the delay, the confusion, the exhaustion as evidence of personal inadequacy. Our cultural programming screams, try harder, push through, don't quit. So we redouble our effort, we apply more force to the same existing structure. We try to ram the boulder of our old self through the new landscape. This forced continuation, when preservation has become impossibly expensive, is drift. Drift is motion without preservation. It is the continuation of activity after the internal coherence that gave it meaning has been abandoned. In drift, we make decisions that subtly betray our values because we cannot find a verified path that honors them. We adopt beliefs that clash with our core because we lack the stamina to reconcile the contradiction. We stay in situations that erode our spirit because the cost of verifying an exit path feels insurmountable. We tell ourselves new, convenient stories to plaster over the growing gaps between our actions and our self-concept. Drift is not a dramatic collapse, it is a slow, silent leaching of meaning from motion. You continue to do, but the why becomes hollow, then forgotten, then replaced by inertia or external expectation. This is the architecture of burnout, of midlife crises, of the feeling that you have become a stranger in your own life. The alternative, the structurally sound and ultimately courageous response, is to learn to stop, not to quit in defeat, but to halt with diagnostic clarity, to stop and declare, here. At this point, my preservation mechanism is failing. My existing self-structure cannot coherently process this demand or navigate this territory. To continue pretending it can is to enter drift. This kind of stopping is not an emotional reaction. It is the execution of a final local check. It is the system's supreme act of fidelity to its own coherence. It is the moment you choose meaning over momentum. From this clean, uncompromising stop, only 3 structurally sound paths forward exist. 1. Extension, formation of a new invariant. This is deep learning or transformation. You take in new data, have a genuine insight, or undergo an experience that fundamentally rewires a part of your self-structure. You create a new reusable module, a new skill at the level of identity, a revised core belief, a more integrative narrative. The old horizon dissolves because you have literally become a different, more capacious system. A new horizon forms farther out. This is growth, but it is metabolically costly and always involves a phase of disorientation and vulnerability. 2. Reorganization, representational shift. You discover that by changing the frame, the way you are representing the problem or yourself, the existing modules suddenly align. What seemed a conflict of values becomes a problem of resource allocation. What felt like a personal failing becomes a mismatch of methods. The horizon collapses because you find a perspective where preservation becomes locally enforceable again. This is the aha moment, the stroke of genius. It feels like a sudden drop in difficulty because it is. The verification cost has plummeted. 3. Cessation, legacy. You determine, after honest inspection, that this path is closed to the self you currently are. The horizon is terminal. The cost of extension or the insight for reorganization is beyond the current possible. The only action that preserves your integrity is to cease motion in this direction entirely. This is not failure. It is the drawing of a legacy boundary. It is saying, this is not who I am. This is not what I do. It is the act of defining a self by what it will not pursue, what it will not tolerate, what it will not become. A clean cessation leaves a coherent legacy. A collapsed pursuit leaves only debris and regret. Our modern world is an engine for the production of drift. It worships relentless, frictionless motion. It pathologizes stopping, labeling it as quitting, losing, weakness, or lack of resilience. From the structural preservation standpoint we are exploring, This cultural mantra is a recipe for systemic collapse on a personal and civilizational scale. It encourages lives spent in a state of low-grade, perpetual drift, where motion continues long after the internal compass has been silenced. Trust, real, resilient trust, is not built by uninterrupted motion. It is built by the visible, consistent defense of meaning. A person, a team, an institution that can stop cleanly at a horizon is trustworthy. Its yes carries weight because its no is structural, reliable, and principled. Its actions are predictable not in their specifics, but in their adherence to a preserved core. It earns confidence because it demonstrates that it will not sacrifice its essence for speed, convenience, or approval. Now let us apply this lens with ruthless honesty to the architecture of your own life. Your identity, I. You experience yourself as a thinker, a feeler, a decider, but examine this as a preservation system. Is it that you think, or is it that a vast pre-existing structure, language, cultural logic, familial conditioning, personal history, thinks, and you, as a locus of awareness, are committed to preserving the experience of being the author of those thoughts? The I is your primary reusable module, your most cherished invariant. Every experience is verified against it. Is this something I would do, think, feel? When evidence arises that challenges this I, feedback, failure, a new desire that doesn't fit the story, you hit a horizon. Drift is the gradual, unconscious alteration of memory and perception to keep the I intact. Courage is to stop and examine the I itself. Your relationships, are they domains of cheap preservation? Does being with this person feel effortless because your interactions are built on a deep foundation of pre-verified trust, mutual understanding, and aligned values, reuse? Or are they a horizon of exhausting verification? Does every conversation require careful management of ego, the retelling of old stories, the navigation of unhealed wounds? The friction is a precise measure of how much new coordination is required to preserve each individual's self-structure within the interaction. Your work, does it align with your reusable structures, your validated skills, your core values, making motion fluid and verification quick? Or is it a daily exercise in costly internal negotiation, where you must constantly reconcile your activities with a self-concept they violate? I'm a creative, but I only do bureaucracy. I value honesty, but my job requires spin. The exhaustion you feel at the end of such a day is not from labor, but from the immense hidden cost of preserving a coherent self against the demands of the role. Your stuck problems. Look at the issue that weighs on you most heavily. Are you trying to push through a terminal horizon with sheer willpower? Are you in a state of drift regarding it, having moved into a pattern of worrying or half-hearted action that long ago lost connection to a coherent solution path? The persistent nature of the problem is a giant arrow pointing to a structural conflict within your own system of preservation. The invitation of this evening is to initiate a profound shift, from a psychology of effort to a structural ethics of preservation. This is the discipline, should you choose to adopt it. Name your central invariant. With brutal honesty, ask, what is the core coherence I am actually trying to preserve? Not happiness, but the specific integrity of my word, of my compassion, of my curiosity, of my autonomy, that if lost, would make motion meaningless. Write it down. Make it plain. Install local checks. Design moments of non-negotiable verification in your daily flow. These are your structural conscience. Before I speak in anger, I pause. Does this preserve my invariant of respect? Before I take on a new commitment, I stop. Does this align with my preserved value of family time? When the check fails, you halt the action. Not later, now. Authorize your own refusal. Give yourself the permanent structural authority to halt any process. A thought spiral, a conversation, a project, a career path that forces you into the exhausted, costly verification zone against your core invariant. This authority is not moody or capricious. It is your system's foundational self-defense mechanism. Design bridge rules. A clean stop cannot be a permanent freeze. A bridge rule is a temporary, stricter invariant that allows safe, minimal, investigative motion while structural repair occurs. I have stopped this project because it violates my integrity. The bridge rule is, I will spend 1 hour a day for the next week exploring alternative approaches that do not require that violation. This prevents paralysis. Treat horizons as sacred data. A recurring difficulty is not a curse or a personal flaw. It is a precise cartographic reading of your current structural limit. It shows you, in high definition, the exact shape and contour of your current eye. Study it with curiosity, not judgment. Is this a horizon I can extend through? Does it require a reorganization of thought? Or is it a terminal boundary I must respect? Practice clean cessation. Learn to end things well. A concluded project, a finished phase of life, a closed relationship. A clean cessation involves a final verification of the invariant, a declaration of completion, and the creation of a legacy package. What was learned, what was built, what is left for others. This turns an ending from a failure into a contribution to meaning. This path I outline does not lead to a life of ease. It leads to a life of coherence. It does not promise the elimination of difficulty. It promises the transformation of difficulty from a terrifying foe into a trusted guide. Exhaustion will no longer be a fog of despair, but a clear signal reading, preservation cost too high, stop and diagnose. A stop will not be a moment of shame, but a moment of clarity and self-respect. You will become a system that can be trusted. By others, yes, but more importantly, by yourself. Because a system that will refuse to continue incoherently is a system that has learned what matters. Its stillness is not emptiness. It is potential, charged with integrity. Its refusal is not defiance. It is the highest form of loyalty to truth. Its halt is not collapse. It is the deliberate, graceful transition from motion to meaning. This is the inquiry. This is the structure we have traced together, from the simple count to the complex self. The map is now in your hands. The territory ahead is your own life. Choose your preservation, then move or stop accordingly. Thank you.